She was already laughing before I finished the sentence. Not the kind of laugh you fake at a dinner party to be polite. No, this one had teeth. It rang through the room like a dropped wine glass, sharp and impossible to ignore. Everyone turned to look. She pushed her chair back, dabbed the corner of her mouth with a napkin like she was on stage, and said, "God, you actually thought I liked that?" Then she laughed again, deeper this time. It was like being kissed by an apology email. I sat there, frozen, holding a spoonful of creme brulee like it was evidence. Someone at the table gasped. Another chuckled. The rest just went quiet, the kind of silence that feels sticky, heavy, like wet clothes. She wasn't done. "You guys," she said, turning to her side of the table like I wasn't even there. He once lit candles for date night, put on a playlist, and accidentally shuffled in a podcast about tax reform. That was supposed to be romantic. A few people smiled awkwardly. I forced a laugh. Just one. I had learned how to do that, fake the sound without showing the teeth. But inside, I felt it crack. It wasn't the insult. It wasn't the snickering. It was the way she kept going. Like she needed it. Like publicly peeling off layers of my dignity was dessert. And then she said it. The sentence I'll never forget. "Being with him is like using Internet Explorer in 2025. Technically functional, but you wouldn't choose it unless everything else crashed." That broke the room. Someone snorted. A man at the far end actually clapped. And me? I smiled. That same paper-thin smile. But I felt something shift behind my eyes. Something cold and strangely still. Like the moment right before a fire alarm. I didn't say a word. Not yet. I just stood up, calmly, pushed in my chair, and said, "Before I go, let me tell you all a little story. It's short. Just one detail, actually. About a cabin. In February. And a man named Victor." And suddenly, she wasn't laughing anymore. Her face turned to stone. The man sitting 2 seats away from her, the one with the cufflinks shaped like chess pieces, dropped his fork. "Wait," someone whispered. "Isn't that?" I nodded. "Yes," I said, still calm. "Exactly who you're thinking." Then I walked toward the door. And just before I reached it, I heard her whisper my name, soft, panicked, like she was begging time to reverse. But time didn't. I opened the door. And when I looked back, every single person was staring at her. I should have kept walking. Should have let the silence behind me stretch into eternity. But I hesitated, just for a second, at the edge of that doorway. Not because I wanted to see her reaction, but because a part of me, the part that hadn't fully died yet, was still hoping she'd say something, anything. An apology, a denial, even a scream. But there was nothing. Just the creaking of my own shoes against polished wood as I stepped out into the hallway. From behind me, murmurs began. Quiet at first, then louder. Her name, over and over, passed from one mouth to another like a curse. Victor. That one word had detonated the entire evening. I didn't even need to explain. I'd chosen my timing too well. They all knew who Victor was. Clara had talked about him endlessly for months. Her mentor, her guiding light, the genius behind the firm's best designs. She spoke of him with reverence, like a starry-eyed intern in awe of a legend. I used to tease her for it, gently, trying to hide the jealousy burning beneath my skin. I didn't know then what I know now. I kept walking down the hall, past the coat rack, past the mirror where I caught a glimpse of myself, pale, drawn, eyes wide like I'd just walked away from a car crash. My pulse was slamming in my neck. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from release, because I'd known for weeks. I'd found the text 3 Sundays ago, on a morning she thought I was asleep. She was in the shower, humming. I was reaching for her charger and saw the notification flash on her lock screen. That was incredible. "Can't stop thinking about your hands." Followed by a red heart. Not from me. Not from anyone she should have been texting before 8 a.m. I stared at that message for a full minute, longer maybe. Then I opened the rest. I shouldn't have, but I did. And what I saw, it hollowed me out. The messages weren't just flirty. They were explicit, detailed, filled with memories I wasn't part of. And then came the photo. One picture, blurry but unmistakable. Her hand, his chest, a hotel pillow behind them. Date stamped 2 days before our anniversary. I never confronted her. Not directly. I couldn't. I was terrified of the answer. Terrified of being right. So I stayed quiet. Cooked dinner. Cleaned the apartment. Took her to brunch. Let her post a happy 4 years. Love you forever, yellow heart. picture on Instagram with me smiling next to her like a damn fool. But tonight, when she turned me into the joke, when she weaponized my loyalty for applause, that was the final straw. As I reached the front door, I heard footsteps behind me. Quick, desperate ones. Then her voice. Emery, wait. I didn't turn around. She grabbed my wrist. What are you doing? I pulled away without speaking. Her eyes were wide, panicked. Please, don't do this here. Now I turned. Why? I asked quietly. Because it's your party this time? Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. I sat through your mockery. I swallowed it. Like I always do. But I will not be the quiet one tonight. She looked around. A few guests had followed us into the hallway now. They weren't pretending not to stare. One woman had her phone out. Maybe recording. Maybe taking pictures. I didn't care. You think I'm boring? I said, voice trembling. You think I'm embarrassing? She blinked fast, lip twitching. Emery, please. I know about the cabin, Clara. I know about February. I know about the necklace you said you lost. The one he's wearing in that picture on his LinkedIn banner now. She went still. Her face turned a strange shade. Not red, not pale, but something in between, like wax melting under heat. And then, for the first time in a very long time, she didn't have anything to say. Not a single clever line. Not a single joke. Just silence. And I finally stepped outside. The air was freezing. I hadn't brought my coat. But I didn't feel the cold. I felt free. But what happened next? What she did to flip the story and the lies she told to cover it up? I wasn't ready for that. I thought it was over. It wasn't. I didn't go home that night. I got in the car, started the engine, then just sat there. Hands on the wheel, parked in front of someone else's hydrangeas, trying to remember how to breathe like a normal person. It felt like my chest had forgotten how to rise and fall. Like the gravity in the universe had changed and no one told me. The driveway lights flickered, and for a second I thought maybe I was dreaming. Or hallucinating. But I wasn't. I knew that. The chill from the steering wheel was real. The buzzing of my phone in my pocket, also real. I didn't look. I knew it was her. I drove with no destination. Just kept moving. Through neighborhoods with better lawns than ours. Past stores that had already turned off their signs for the night. I ended up parked outside a laundromat that had a flickering, open sign, even though no one was inside. I watched the dryer spin. Something about that rhythm calmed me, even though I wasn't washing anything. I must have sat there for an hour. Eventually, I checked my phone. 5 missed calls. 9 texts. 2 voicemails. The first message was short. What did you just do? Then, come back. We need to talk. Then, you're ruining everything. And finally, if you don't answer, I'm telling them you made it up. That one hit different. I didn't respond. Because the truth was, I had more than just one photo. I had proof. Weeks of it. Screenshots, hotel confirmations, messages between them on her backup cloud account that she forgot to log out of on the iPad. I wasn't impulsive. I was just waiting. For the right moment. And she handed it to me like a gift wrapped in cruelty. But now she was going to lie. I didn't expect that. I thought she'd break down. Apologize. Beg. Something. But no. Clara was choosing the nuclear option. Denial. I didn't sleep that night. Just drove back to our apartment around 4 a.m. Crawled into bed fully dressed. She wasn't home. By morning, her side of the bed was still untouched. And then the messages started coming in, but not from her. Her friends. People from the party. Even her sister. They all had variations of the same question. Why would you say that about her? Or worse, are you okay? You seemed unstable. And the real gut punch. Clara told us you've been paranoid for months. That it's getting worse. My mouth went dry. She had prepared for this. She knew I'd find out. She must have known for weeks. And instead of stopping, she created a fallback story. A narrative. One where I was the insecure, overreacting husband. Needy, clingy, delusional. A man unraveling under the weight of his own inadequacy. It wasn't hard to sell. I'd been quiet for so long. I didn't have many friends. She was the one who sparkled at parties, who stayed late at work, who everyone adored. I was the guy who apologized when someone bumped into me at the grocery store. They believed her. Of course they did. By noon, she came home. I was standing in the kitchen, hands clenched around a mug of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. She walked in like she was just coming back from yoga. Calm. Controlled. Hair tied up. No makeup. Casual sweatshirt. The wife who's just worried about her husband. She looked at me and tilted her head. Why are you doing this? I didn't answer. You're trying to ruin me, she said softly. Do you realize that? I just stared. I told them you were having a breakdown, that you've been anxious. You haven't been sleeping. You admitted that to me, remember? I nodded slowly. And I told you why I wasn't sleeping. She didn't blink. There is no Victor. Not like that. You misunderstood. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I walked past her, opened the drawer, and pulled out the flash drive. She saw it. Her expression cracked, just for a second. This, I said, holding it between us, has everything. I was never going to use it. Not unless you gave me a reason. She reached for it. I pulled it back. Clara, I said, voice barely above a whisper. Don't make me be the villain. Don't make me destroy you just because you're afraid of the truth. Her eyes narrowed. And then she said something that still makes my blood run cold. You think truth matters? No one cares who's right. They care who speaks first. And I already have. And with that, she turned and walked out of the room. But I wasn't done. She had the crowd. I had the proof. And I had one last card to play. One I'd been saving not just for revenge, but to finally reclaim the one thing I'd lost long before any of this started. My voice. I didn't respond to Clara. Not with words, at least. I waited until she left the apartment, probably off to another damage control lunch or a subtle whisper campaign. And then I opened my laptop, plugged in the flash drive, and began compiling everything. I didn't just want to expose the affair. That was too easy, too expected. I wanted to destroy the illusion. The one she'd built around us for years. The one she wore like perfume. I didn't post the screenshots. Not yet. I didn't send the messages to her friends or coworkers. That would have been too direct, too satisfying. And honestly, I wasn't looking for satisfaction anymore. I wanted precision. Quiet precision. Surgical. Instead, I drafted an email. One. Single. Email. It wasn't to her. It was to Victor's wife. Her name was Isla. I'd seen her once, briefly, at a gallery opening Clara dragged me to 6 months ago. Isla had seemed kind, understated, almost invisible beside Victor's booming presence. She wore a delicate bracelet that night, the kind that catches light when no one's looking. I had done some digging since then. She was a children's therapist. She volunteered at a shelter on weekends. Her Facebook was filled with pictures of their kids, twin boys, 7 years old, with matching backpacks and toothpaste-smeared smiles. I didn't want to hurt her, but she deserved to know. So I wrote, Hi Isla, I'm not reaching out to upset you or cause harm, but I believe we're both married to people who haven't been honest with us. I've attached something you need to see. I'm sorry. I truly am. Emery. I attached 3 screenshots. Not the worst ones. Just enough to confirm the truth. Just enough to shake the ground, not burn the house. I hovered over the send button for at least a full minute. Then I clicked it, and it was done. You'd think I'd feel relief, vindication, triumph. I felt none of that. I felt hollow. I went and lay on the floor, not the couch, the floor, because something about lying there, pressed against something cold and solid, made me feel less like I was floating through the worst week of my life. The apartment stayed quiet. Until, maybe 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. One new message. From an unknown number. It read, Meet me. Today. 4 p.m. Lafayette Park. Alone. No name. No explanation. I stared at it. My first instinct was that it was Clara, being dramatic. Or Victor, trying to scare me. But something told me no. This wasn't either of them. I typed back. Who is this? No answer. I waited another minute. Nothing. And then, out of nowhere, the doorbell rang. My spine stiffened. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. Empty hallway. But just as I stepped back, a piece of folded paper slid under the door. I picked it up. It was a page torn from a notebook. No writing. Just a printed photo, stapled in the center. It was me, sitting in my car. From last night. Outside the laundromat. Whoever this was, they were watching me. And they wanted me to know it. I grabbed my keys, slipped the flash drive into my pocket, and left the apartment without even locking the door. Lafayette Park was 20 minutes away. I had no idea what was waiting for me there. But I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just a story about betrayal anymore. It was becoming something much bigger. And much more dangerous. Lafayette Park was too quiet for a weekday. The sky was thick with gray, not quite ready to rain, but heavy enough to press against my lungs. I parked 2 blocks away and walked in slow, deliberate steps, watching the benches, the trees, The old man feeding pigeons with robotic precision. I kept the flash drive in my jacket pocket, my hand wrapped around it like a talisman. I didn't know who I was meeting. I didn't know why I was meeting them. All I had was a text and a photo that shouldn't exist. And still, I went. Because when your life starts unraveling in slow motion, you stop fearing the next tug. I reached the center path where the fountain sat dormant for the season. That's when I saw her. Not Clara. Not Isla. A woman, mid-30s, dark jeans, denim jacket, and a plain brown ponytail. She was sitting on the bench beneath the rusted lamppost, legs crossed, a single AirPod in one ear. She looked up as I approached, then reached into her coat and pulled out something small, a flash drive. Identical to mine. Emery? She asked. I nodded. She patted the space next to her. Sit. I hesitated. Then I did. I'm guessing you have questions, she said. My mouth was dry. Who are you? Her lips curled slightly, not quite a smile. Someone who made the same mistake you did. Trusted the wrong people. She pulled the flash drive back into her hand and spun it between her fingers like it weighed nothing. You're not the only one Clara and Victor fooled. I stared at her. You knew them? Knew? Try worked with them. For years. She tapped the flash drive. This has more than just text messages. It has financials, emails, voice notes. They were careless. And greedy. She turned toward me fully now. You think this was just about cheating? No, Emery. That was just the appetizer. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. She continued. Victor's company is under investigation. Fraud. Embezzlement. Clara's name is on multiple accounts. I don't know if she was in on it the whole time or just enjoyed the perks. But she's not innocent. I shook my head. Clara works in design. She's listed in design. But she's also the authorized rep on 2 shell companies they funneled money through. Guess whose name they used for the backup email? I stared at her. Yours, she said. And I'm guessing you had no idea. I wanted to laugh, to scream, to stand up and run into traffic. Instead, I whispered, why are you telling me this? She finally looked serious. Because I made the mistake of staying quiet. And it cost me everything. But you're still in position to fight back. And more importantly, she leaned in closer. They think you're weak. I flinched. Use that, she said. Use their underestimation. But be careful. Clara plays innocent. She cries. She manipulates. But she is not stupid. I looked at the drive in her hand. What's on it? I asked. Enough to get the FBI's attention. If you're smart about it. I took it. And just like that, she stood up, adjusted her jacket, and walked away without another word. I sat there for several minutes, the 2 flash drives warm in my pocket, my thoughts spinning out of control. What started as a personal betrayal was now a legal one, a financial one, a criminal one, and I was in the center of it. Later that evening, I went home and plugged the second flash drive into a burner laptop I kept for freelance gigs. I didn't trust my regular setup anymore. Clara was too good with passwords, too good at reading faces. I opened the folder. There were hundreds of files. One caught my eye right away. It was labeled, voicemail_Clara_redacted. M4A. I hit play. Her voice filled the room. Soft, calm, familiar. But the words? They chilled me. I don't care what happens to him, okay? He's just easy. Emery is easy. He doesn't ask questions. He trusts me. That's the point. My breath caught. She paused in the recording, then laughed. Not cruel, not mocking, worse. Dismissive. Like I was disposable. He's perfect for this. I closed the laptop. I sat in silence for a long time, hands shaking. And that night, I finally understood. This wasn't just about cheating. It never was. I wasn't just betrayed. I was used. But if Clara thought I'd keep playing the fool, she was about to find out what a broken man can do when he's backed into a corner. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even lie down. I just sat at the kitchen table, lit only by the glow of the stove clock, staring at the 2 flash drives like they were cursed artifacts. One held my heartbreak. The other held someone else's crimes with my name stitched into the paperwork like a death sentence. At 3:22 a.m., I poured myself a glass of orange juice and knocked it over without taking a sip. The puddle spread across the table, seeping into a stack of unopened mail. I didn't clean it. I just watched the liquid drown a coupon booklet and thought, I'm not supposed to be the guy who uncovers financial crime. I'm the guy who forgets his own laundry in the washer until it smells like regret. But that's the thing about being underestimated. You stop underestimating yourself. By sunrise, I had a plan. Not a flashy one. Not the kind that ends with someone in handcuffs and a crowd cheering. Mine was slower, cleaner, precise. The first step, visit the bank. Not our bank. Hers. Clara always thought she was clever keeping a separate checking account. She said it was for independent expenses, yoga classes, skincare subscriptions, that kind of thing. But one time, she logged in from our shared laptop and didn't log out. I installed a screen recorder the next morning and let it run in the background for weeks. I hadn't even watched most of the footage. Now I did. It was all there. Wire transfers, monthly payouts, names I didn't recognize. The same two LLCs popping up over and over again. One of them was Kelmer Group LLC, a company Clara once described to me as a client we never onboard. Funny how they were wiring her $7,000 a month for a project that didn't exist. I printed everything. Then I booked an appointment with a financial crimes attorney using a fake name and a voice so shaky the receptionist asked if I needed medical attention. I didn't tell Clara anything. She was still trying to play the concerned wife routine, leaving handwritten notes in the apartment. We need to talk. Can we fix this? Like I was going through some midlife spiral, and she was the only rope keeping me grounded. I ignored her. Instead, I dug deeper. I called a friend from college who worked in data forensics, a guy named Jonah who once helped me recover files off a fried hard drive after I spilled beer on my laptop. He owed me a favor. I told him I needed a trace done on 3 shell corporations. Didn't say why. Didn't have to. He called me 2 days later. Dude, he said, no greeting. 2 of those companies are ghosts. Like, properly scrubbed. But one of them, Kelmer, it's got an address. Where? I asked. He paused. Your in-laws' cabin in Vermont. My mouth dried out instantly. That cabin. The one I never visited. The one Clara always said was her escape, and too cold for you anyway. She used to disappear there for weekends with her sketchpad and come back smelling like pine needles and someone else's cologne. That's when it clicked. The cabin wasn't just a hideout. It was headquarters. I booked a rental car that same night. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I left my phone behind and bought a burner at a gas station. I even wore one of Clara's old beanies so I'd look like a harmless, tired husband trying to rediscover nature, which wasn't far from the truth. The drive took 6 hours. The key was still under the 3rd rock to the left of the steps, just like she told me once, in a moment of wine-fueled honesty. I unlocked the door, and what I saw inside made my stomach twist. No rustic charm. No family photos. No cozy plaid blankets. Just 2 desks. A printer. A locked filing cabinet. A safe bolted to the floor. And a single framed photo, not of her and me, but of Clara and Victor, both wearing name badges at some corporate event, smiling like royalty. I didn't touch anything at first. Just stood there and let the weight of it all settle into my bones. She had built a second life. A cleaner one. More polished. One where I didn't exist at all. Except, of course, on the documents that could take the fall if things went south. I took photos. Every drawer. Every paper. Every receipt. Then I noticed the envelope. It was tucked behind the printer, almost like someone had hidden it in a hurry. I pulled it out. Inside was a stack of cash. $10,000 in crisp bills. And a note. Not addressed to Clara. Not to Victor. To me. It read, if you found this, you know too much. Take the money. Walk away. This doesn't have to get worse. There was no signature, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Clara. She had planned for this too. But what she didn't plan for, what none of them did, was what happens when the quiet guy doesn't walk away. When he stops waiting to be rescued. When he becomes something else entirely. I left the money on the table. Not because I didn't need it, God knows I did, but because taking it would have made me complicit. That's what it was meant for. Not a bribe. A trap. The kind of offer that's only made so they can point later and say, he accepted the deal. He was in on it. That envelope was never meant to buy my silence. It was meant to erase my credibility. So I took photos instead. High-res. Angled. Clean. Then I pulled a Ziploc bag from my coat pocket. I'd brought it in case I found anything worth collecting, and sealed the envelope inside without touching the bills again. I left everything else untouched, because now I had enough. Not just evidence. Not just motive. But a story. And if Clara had taught me anything, it was this. People don't care about what's true. They care about what's convincing. It wasn't enough to have facts. I needed a narrative. So on the drive back, somewhere between mile marker 193 and an abandoned fruit stand that looked like it hadn't sold a single apple since 2002. I started crafting it. Not a revenge story, not a sob story, something colder, sharper, a story about manipulation, about fraud, about a woman who used her husband's name to shield herself while carrying out a white-collar heist behind his back, and a man who quietly built a digital folder so airtight, so undeniable, that even the cleanest liars couldn't explain it away. When I got back to the city, I didn't go home. I checked into a hotel under a fake name, paid in cash, slept for 4 hours, then woke up and called the attorney I'd spoken to days earlier. This time, I told him everything. I forwarded a sanitized version of the evidence, redacted, but damning. He didn't say much over the phone. Just, bring the originals. And don't go back to that apartment. I agreed. But before I turned everything over, I had one last thing to do. Clara needed to know I wasn't hers anymore. Not her shield. Not her scapegoat. Not her spineless yes-man who'd walk around smiling while she carved up my life behind closed doors. So I went back to the apartment. She was there. Of course she was. Sitting cross-legged on the couch, wine glass in hand, laptop open in front of her, as if she was preparing a quarterly report instead of orchestrating the collapse of her own marriage. She looked up like she'd been expecting me. You went to the cabin, she said. I didn't answer. You took pictures, she added. Sent something to that lawyer. I know. Still, I said nothing. I just walked in and dropped the second flash drive, the one with her voice on it, onto the table. You remember what you said in that recording? I asked. She didn't flinch. I was venting. People say things. Right, I said. Like calling your husband easy to use. Like telling your lover he'd make a perfect fall guy if things got messy. She put the glass down. You think this is going to save you? She asked quietly. No, I said. This isn't about saving me anymore. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. I leaned closer, resting both palms on the table. You built a system based on control, on your ability to stay 5 steps ahead. But you didn't see me. You never did. You thought I was soft, disposable. You are, she said flatly. You're not built for this, Emery. I smiled. Not cruelly, not bitterly, but with something new in my chest. Stillness. You're right, I said. I wasn't. But I learned. She stood, crossed her arms. So what now? You take me down? And what? You're the sad little ex-husband who cried fraud? You think that makes you the hero? I looked her dead in the eyes. I don't need to be the hero, Clara. I just need to not be the idiot who let you win. For a moment, the mask slipped. Just a flicker. Her mouth trembled. Not fear. Rage. You're ruining everything, she whispered. I turned to leave. Paused at the door. I'm not ruining anything, I said. You did that yourself. I'm just turning on the lights. I walked out without slamming the door. Calm. Controlled. By the time I got back to the hotel, my attorney had already forwarded me a draft, a formal statement, a timeline, a clean Dropbox of redacted files that would go directly to the Financial Crimes Division. He also included a line I hadn't expected. If you release this as is, the burden of proof shifts to them. You are the whistleblower, not the suspect. For the first time in weeks, I felt safe. Not free. Not yet. But armed. And when Clara's final play came, the last move she thought would bury me completely, I was ready. Or at least, I thought I was. Because what she did next, no one could have seen that coming. Not even me. The subpoena came 3 days later. It was hand-delivered to my hotel room at 7:43 a.m., slipped under the door by a courier wearing a tie and a bored expression. At first glance, it looked bad. Legal language. Bolded names. My own among them. But I'd been prepped for this. My attorney walked me through it over the phone. They're panicking, he said. This is them trying to scare you. They want to know how much you know and whether they can spin it before it hits the system. It wasn't a criminal charge. It was a request for cooperation. Meaning, Clara and Victor had gone to someone first, probably a corporate lawyer, maybe even a contact in law enforcement, and played the same song she always did. Confused husband. Misunderstanding. Emotional spiral. But this time, the lyrics didn't land. Because the moment I handed over the folder, with timestamps, bank logs, the envelope, the photo of the safe, and that voicemail, everything changed. I wasn't some bitter ex looking for revenge. I was the whistleblower. The one they hadn't counted on. By the end of that week, Clara was placed on indefinite leave from her firm. Victor's company issued a vague but panicked press release about internal restructuring and compliance measures. My name wasn't mentioned, but I saw the tremble in their statements. The subtle code language people use when they're waiting to see who rolls over first. I didn't respond to Clara's texts after that. Not when she begged. Not when she threatened. Not even when she said she'd tell everyone what I was really like at home. Which made me laugh, honestly. Because what I was really like at home was alone. Just a man married to someone who rehearsed lies like they were elevator pitches. I stayed off social media. Let my job know I was taking a leave of absence. They didn't ask questions. I think they assumed I was grieving, or maybe traveling. Fine. Let them think that. I spent the next month in the quietest town I could find, one with a public library, a bakery that closed at 2 p.m., and no Uber coverage. I read novels I'd been putting off for years, went on long walks, cooked without checking my phone, and slowly, something strange happened. I started recognizing myself again. Not the version Clara had curated, the safe, forgettable man who nodded politely and took up as little space as possible, but the one who noticed things, who asked hard questions, who stood his ground, the man who could see through charm now, who understood silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. Eventually, I returned home. The apartment was empty. She'd taken her clothes, some furniture, a few framed photos. Left behind the French press, which was mine anyway, a half-used candle, and a single yellow sticky note on the bathroom mirror. You always had potential. I hope you use it. No signature. No apology. But it didn't matter. Because I wasn't looking for closure anymore. I already had it. In the end, Clara didn't get arrested. Not right away. These things take time. Investigations are slow and careful. But her name would never carry the same weight again. And Victor? He'd gone radio silent. Some say he left the country. Others think he's negotiating a plea. Let them run. I wasn't chasing them. I was rebuilding me. Now, I rent a small place of my own. Nothing fancy. Just mine. The walls are quiet. The mornings are still. I started journaling, something I hadn't done since college. Sometimes I write about her. Most days I don't. And one morning, I made a decision. I wrote down the full story, every part of it. Not for revenge or clicks or sympathy, but because I wanted it out of me. This story, right here, the one you've just read. And if you're still with me by now, maybe you understand what it's really about. It's not about infidelity, not about fraud, not even about justice. It's about finally learning how to stop shrinking for someone else's comfort. It's about standing up, not in rage, but in clarity. I thought losing Clara would destroy me. Turns out, it introduced me to myself. And I'm not letting him go again.